All right, seconds out. Let's get right to Asia markets. How we're starting off. Lead working with is a good one, so we're likely to see some traction out here. Yes, that's exactly what we're getting. About 90 seconds into trade Wednesday. Nikkei 225 is up 0.7 already. Sydney is up a useful 0.25% and a bit more. Seoul trails, but still about 0.1% in the money there. Meantime, we're keeping a close eye on earnings. It's still earnings season up in Tokyo. Let's get right to Will Kalouris. What are you watching this morning?
It's a Sony, Marty. It's very much a Sony. So, no one got that joke? The old ads, the Sony ads? It's a Sony. Come on.
I get it.
Where's the chuckle?
I remember the yellow sports Walkman as well. Every cool kid needed one.
And that's why I love you, Sri. But in terms of the numbers we are watching this morning, I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts that we are seeing a glut of buy orders coming through for Sony. The ADRs are absolutely ripped, but it is incredibly interesting when you start to dissect the numbers and go into the underneath. So, in terms of, I suppose, the broad scope of the earnings, it realistically was a beat for the most part for Sony because they beat when it came to their GNS revenues. They beat across a number of their other divisions as well. I'm not sure if we do have an earnings wall handy for you at the same time, but when you look at their expectations moving forward, this is where it gets really tricky because what they're expecting right now moving forward is only to sell 18 million units. You might remember we were harping on about this a couple of quarters ago, these very bullish sales targets in terms of the expectations, and they failed to deliver. And yet again, it's almost around about 3 million under analyst expectations for the year ending March 2025. But if you're looking at some of the gaming actual play, their playtime almost hit record highs in terms of the month of March at the very least. They've had huge success when it does come to Helldivers and across some of their other divisions. Even Cowboy Carter, Beyonce's latest album, has turned into a #1 hit upon its release. But why are you seeing this 6.6%? Some are suggesting it's a little bit to do with the Paramount chatter. Maybe they'll be pulling out. Our very own David Faber had the scoop on that one. Maybe, but probably not. The reason you're seeing this is twofold. One, there were $250 billion worth of fresh buybacks announced by Sony, and more importantly, the 5-for-1 stock split. It cannot be stressed enough how significant this is because you've got to think of it within the context of what this means for Japanese retail investors who take advantage of the NISA, the savings program that allows them to avoid paying excess capital gains taxes and a little bit less when it comes to the dividend front as well. So it's a 20% haircut in terms of some of the taxes they're going to be paying. So now, instead of having $75 odd a share US in US terms per 100 packets, so you've got to buy those 100 shares, which would cost you around the order of $7,500. Now, that same allotment will cost you $15. So then you're paying $1,500 per 100 share allotment. It makes it much easier for retail investors to participate. So the flow that they should see on the back of all of this will be immense. But really quickly moving forward, let's take a look at some of the other earnings that we saw and whether or not we're getting any price action. Well, we've actually not got price action for Asahi and Natori as well, so it might get a little bit interesting indeed. So Asahi beat. The FI guide was a little bit dicey. Their profits were off in Oceania, but they actually saw some uplift when it came to Japan and Europe really driving the gains. And just for you, Marty, they actually saw a 13% drop off in coffee sales in Japan, but whiskey was up by around about almost 35%. So it's pretty funny how people are consuming over there in Japan, at least for the last quarter. Rakuten, they continue to go from bad to worse. Their mobile division is getting absolutely hammered down. If you look at how some of the other telcos are performing, Rakuten Mobile versus, say, a Docomo versus, say, a SoftBank Corp, like the SoftBank Corp telco versus, say, what NTT is doing at the same time, their numbers far worse in terms of, and they're actually running a loss in their mobile division. And Natori, this one's also going to get interesting. You might know they've opened up in Singapore for any of you watching locally. Their FY earnings were below guide and below the street expectations, and their full year profit and expectations also below the street.
They're tied in with Harvey Norman, aren't they? Natori, I think so.
You know, they're kind of like it's almost like IKEA, but and Uniqlo and Muji, but it's just the furniture.
Yeah. Anyway, look, you're also looking ahead to Suntory.
Suntory is very interesting because they actually did really good. They actually reported their numbers earlier on this week. Very solid across the gamut. If you're looking at all of the divisions, and it wasn't just the fact that they saw some pretty significant sales, they actually saw the currency helping them out quite significantly. So if you're adjusting for a natural basis, green tea was pretty big for them in Japan. They saw big jumps when it came to their APAC as well. Like I suppose it's the best comparison that you can draw vis-a-vis what Asahi saw, where they did see some weakness in some regions. Asahi across the board, Asahi saw weakness across some regions. Suntory across the board were relatively solid, so they didn't see the same kind of issues in some regions as Asahi did. I actually thought you guys were going to ask me about Sony.
And actually, Asahi looking quite perky. Let's talk about Sony. And yes, it's all very well that capital returns are looking quite juicy, but shouldn't they be doing more in terms of skating to where the puck is and the next transformational thing, or can they chew gum and walk at the same time?
See, that's what's going to get interesting, because it's all going to be dependent on how well they're able to execute on their PS offering, because the way the gaming industry is going, and everyone's saying that, consoles are going to be a thing of the past, they're actually expecting this console cycle, they're going to continue to see, a dip off in sales. A lot of them are going to PC. And, it's a trend that we were talking about when you're thinking about Capcom yesterday, for example. But they've had a little bit of teething problems because their most popular game, Helldivers, what happened was they tried to get everyone on the PlayStation Network who was playing on PC to juice their numbers, which were already pretty good in terms of what I just explained about the PlayStation Network. But then there was a big outcry, so then they're not going to force PC users to come on the PlayStation Network. But realistically, Sony, it's going to be hard for them to sell older consoles, but at the same time, they're at least trying to do all the things that you need to do in terms of cutting costs to address the situation. Yeah.
Well, excellent. I had a storming game of chess with my 10-year-old yesterday. He spilt iced lemon tea over the chessboard, so we had to start again. He won that game.
Who was winning, though?
It was kind of level pecking, actually. Try spilling iced lemon tea over a Sony console and see what happens.
Oh, you can fix it. Get a hairdryer.
Yeah. Indeed.
Thank you, Will. Right, we digress.